Well,
Yeah,
we got an update.
We got an update. Yeah.
Okay, the Supreme Court has spoken.
Yeah. Okay, so let's address the hate mail topic first, real quick. We've got a great show planned. We're talking about the Eviction Moratorium, which was a federal law during the pandemic that prevented landlords.
Federal law. Yeah. Okay, keep going. Sorry.
Yeah, that prevented landlords from evicting tenants. States started adopting their own rules. It's been a little hairy-carry. It's very state specific in some ways as well. But anyway, the rental assistance program was passed to try to help people and help landlords. And only a fraction of the money set aside for that actually has gotten to landlords. So we talked about this about a month ago when it was extended, and we got some hate mail that we were not sensitive to the plight of the tenant. And we certainly did not mean to give that impression, but we are also sensitive to the plight of landlords. 80% of landlords are individuals, not huge corporations. They're people too. They are hurting from not receiving rent. And to think that landlords are all wealthy Ebenezer Scrooges and can take this hit for months on end, that's not true either. So it's a hard situation. So we addressed it, got some hate mail. And Matt, in the meantime, give us the update.
Yeah, last week the Supreme Court ruled the CDC extension of the eviction moratorium unconstitutional. So what happened is during all the COVID pandemic bills, Congress gave an eviction moratorium that expired. Congress authorized a lot of emergency rental assistance we'll talk about here in a moment that landlords can access and tenants can access. But they placed an eviction moratorium that expired. The CDC came in and said, we are taking our authority as Centers for Disease Control, because there's a pandemic, and we're going to extend the eviction moratorium.
Yeah.
Well, the National Association of Realtors fought that. They took it to the Supreme Court. They won at district court. Government appealed. They won in the Supreme Court, basically. So it was unconstitutional. The CDC did not have the authority to do that. And the Supreme Court basically said, Congress can extend it. Go make another law and extend it. But the CDC didn't have the authority to extend it. So that's the nuts and bolts of the legal opinion. And it was 6-3. So it was, wasn't just all the Republicans versus Democrats, if you want to call them, or conservatives and liberals split. And there's a little cleaner than that, going 6-3. So,
yeah. And states still are doing a few things on their own to try and help their citizens per se. So as we talk about this, we're going to repeat probably multiple times that you need to look up what the rule is in your state as a landlord. And we'll talk about how you can go get money, what to do with a tenant that hasn't been paying rent, what are your options. So we can try to figure this out. But it's a touchy topic, and we're grateful if you're a new listener here to kind of checking out this show. Maybe this topic is important to you and you thought, I'll listen to these two yahoos. Thank you. I think yahoos was a phrase way before yahoo.com, but I'm just guessing.
Yeah.
I think so.
There was the drink Yahoo. We should,
Was that Yoo-hoo or Yahoo?
Sponsored by, or Yoo-hoo. Yoo-hoo. Yeah.
Something like that.
That's we're not a bunch of Yoo-hoos.
No.
No.
And so we are both tax lawyers and small business owners, rental property owners, and parents. And we're just trying to be good guys and hold it all together. This is not a political rant, this show today. This is how can we help landlords? So I hate to say, I'm sorry, tenants out there probably don't want to listen further unless you want to know what the strategies are your landlord might employ.
You're going to put up a good defense.
Put up a good defense. What is it? You keep your...
Well, let's say this. I mean, let's just be honest. What the landlord wants is what the tenant wants. At this point, if you've had a tenant that was out of work, that was unable to pay, they qualify for emergency rental assistance that's going to cover their bill so they can stay there and also pay the landlord. It's a win-win. I don't think you got to say it's one or the other. Here's where it's not a win-win. And this is the point of why I love the eviction moratorium getting struck down. A lot of people are like, hey, that's not fair. you guys are taking the position of landlords. We need this eviction moratorium because people have lost their job and they can't work. Okay, they lost their job, they can't work. They qualify for emergency rental assistance, and that'll pay the landlord, and then they're not in default in their lease.
Yeah.
But who's really not paying their rent? People that don't qualify for it, that aren't going and getting the emergency rental assistance.
Yeah.
Because they don't qualify. They're playing games with their landlord. Their landlord's hands are tied. They can't evict them. A lot of landlords, I talked to a client, wants to sell a property because the real estate market's up. And they're like, I can finally cash out on this rental I've had forever, but I can't get my freaking tenant out that's not also paying me rent. It's like the worst, right?
Yeah.
So but the reality is there's a win-win for landlords and tenants. It's the emergency rental assistance we'll talk about here in a moment. It covers your bill if you're a tenant, and it gets you paid as a landlord, and it's all coming from the government.
Yeah. And I will add, it's not those that are out in the news complaining, saying, oh, you're going to evict these people that have lost their job or this or that. And the only people playing games don't qualify for the assistance. There's a lot of people that just don't take the effort or won't cooperate or help the landlord get the assistance. It's a two-part process. It really is. And if you're a landlord, you've already experienced this. You've got to have the help of your tenant to go get this assistance. If you're the tenant, you've got to be involved with communicating with your landlord or the property manager to help them get the rent. This is just not going to automatically happen. And a lot of people, regrettably in life,
it's not like the stimulus check that just popped in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I qualify for rental assistance. Someone's going to send someone a check. I'm just going to go back to doing what I'm doing. No. And regrettably, a lot of people in life are a little lazy and think that these things will just resolve themselves. Now they're getting notices of eviction and they're mad. Where it's like, well, where have you been? You could have solved this. But anyway.
Yeah. And the eviction moratorium, this is important for everyone to know. The eviction moratorium, when it was in effect, didn't relieve you from the ability to pay or from the responsibility to pay. You still had to pay, and that money you owed was racking up.
Yeah.
So, but now, again, you can go get emergency rental assistance. It can go backwards too, as well as forwards if you still need it for, so we want to talk about that. But for you landlords that have had a tenant that now you can finally evict that hasn't paid, that you're going to get a judgment against that you're not going to be able to collect on anyways, what do? Engage back in this emergency rental assistance process.
Yeah. Oh, crazy. Well, anyway, we want to keep this fun, so we're going to joke around a little bit, have a good time. We're going to talk about maybe some tax tips in this process, life tips. This week was one little item in the news. Mark Kohler, went to Park City to do a little mountain biking. And, it was just another wake-up call on getting old. It was a little tough. See, back in the day when I was in my 20s, I loved to mountain bike. It was kind of a big deal back then. It's like, ooh, you're a mountain biker, It was kind of a new deal. It's a little old and maybe passé now, but I thought I was living on the edge.
It's still cool.
It's still cool. So back in the 90s, I was mountain biking and I thought I was, living on the edge.
Okay.
And is that Aerosmith? Living on the edge? I can't remember. We got to figure out, Corey, fact check. See, that's what we have our studio for, not for the quality of the show, but for fact checking songs. But anyway, so I went to Park City and I started to go down this hill. Some of you that are a little older may have experienced this because our body and our mind, they're not on the same page like they used to be. And there's a comedian over on Dry Bar that was so good talking about this too. Like, I got up there and this is what you do in Park City. Best place in America, apparently, for what they call single track. You go up on these ski lifts, you look at the map and you're like, hey, I'm not going to ski down. I'm going to ride my bike down this mountain. Sounds reasonable, And so you look at the little map and there's blue courses and green courses and black courses.
Ooh, okay.
Just like skiing for those that are out there. And so I get off the little gondola with my mountain bike, and I didn't tell you about this, Matt. This was kind of funny. This guy comes over, his bike was dirty. Right there, my bike was clean. Not a good sign. So he knew I was about ready to get, my life passed before my eyes. So he pulls over on his mountain bike. And he's like, "Dude, which way you head down?" And I'm like, "I don't know. I'm going to go with a blue run, kind of moderate." He's like, "Yeah, go over here. That's where you want to go. Do not go over to this black run." And I could see he was trying to save my life, which I appreciated. So I go over to this spot, and they call this single track. People, let me explain what single track means. There's a single track. There's no other track. If you're not on the single track, you're pretty much falling down the hill to your death or dismemberment or disability. So single track, that you got to keep that in mind. So he's like, go for it. So my body's like, again, not in line with me. So my mind, I'm all, this is going to be awesome. I put on my headphones. I'm listening to some Smashing Pumpkins, great 90s band. And I'm just like, I'm going to do this. And I'm like so excited. And I start to go down this single track, and my body's like, did you want to check with us on this? Because I don't think we're ready for this. We didn't sign up for this. Like, we can help you become disabled. You're going to sweat a lot. You're going to be in pain tomorrow, but I don't think we're going to help you here. This is on you. And so I saw my life pass before my eyes a few times. And as I got to the bottom of the hill, I saw another track. There was a golf course, and these old guys were on a golf cart, just smoking cigars and golfing. And I thought, that's the track I should be on. I need to stay in my own lane.
The golf cart path, not the single track mountain bike path downhill.
Yeah. And last point, I want to point this out. By the way,
This
Corey
was your tip.
Yeah, Corey just said that Living on the Edge, Aerosmith. Thank you. That was correct.
I'm more of a dude looks like a lady. That's more of the Aerosmith I'm into.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So if you've ever done this single track, you're kind of going back and forth the side of the mountain and then down ravines. And if you miss one thing, you're looking over 1,000-foot cliff of death and dismemberment. And so my mind starts to catch up to my body, and I was really fearing for my life. And so as you get closer to the bottom, you go back and forth, and then you see the vision of, I'm almost at the bottom of the hill. And then it takes you back into the mountain. And it was just like the movie The Perfect Storm. And I was... Mark Wahlberg's there with, who was the captain again? Come on. You know?
I don't know. Wasn't George Clooney, was it?
Yes. Good. See, I was testing you, George Clooney. And they see the light open up, and they're like, we're going to get out of the storm. And so I'd see the light at the end of the mountain, and I was like, I see a golf course. I see a cart girl with sandwiches. I mean, I'm seeing the light. I'm going to survive. And then we get sucked back into the mountain. And it was like the perfect storm when Mark Wahlberg looked over at George Clooney, and they're like, nope, we're not getting out of this. So, yeah, apparently poison ivy is a very decorative shrub at the bottom of those hills too. I won't elaborate on that situation, but anyway, it was a very big reality check. So just want to point that out for all of you that are getting a little older. Be careful. Make sure you check with your body. Make sure you're both on the same page. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Maybe ease into it,
Yeah.
Just start with the greens,
Yeah.
Start with the cart path.
Yeah.
All right.
See, you're still young.
Well, that was good. That was good story time. So anyone else still listening, we are going to talk about the eviction moratorium. Let me hit a couple of important points though before we get into the rental assistance.
Okay. Baseline.
As Mark mentioned earlier, there are some states that still have eviction moratoriums themselves. So as landlords, you're going to have to, you're not going to be able to do anything until your state makes a change. Now, here's some of the states that already have, this is as of the end of August, that already have a state eviction moratorium in place, or I should say eviction ban, where you're unable to evict.
Is this some of the states, or this is the list of states?
This is the list of states as of end of August.
Okay.
Now, I know there's been legislatures like New York, for example, and others that have called special sessions to try to implement a law. So there may be some not on here, but here's the current list this is August 27th. California, Washington, D.C., Maryland, Minnesota, and Illinois. They still have statewide eviction bans in place. Each of those have different end dates and stuff. So just get up to speed on your state. That information is readily available online if you want to just look up your state. Like I said, I know there's a number of states, even Nevada, Massachusetts, Oregon, that were trying to implement or may have implemented by now. But so
Okay.
in those states, you're not going to be able to evict. You're going to wait. But the federal mandate, unconstitutional. There's no eviction moratorium.
Take the gloves off. Take the gloves off.
Yep.
Now, one other point I would make too, all of you landlords listening, if you are still owed any rent at all from a tenant up to 18 months ago, or foresee that your current tenant is struggling, meet with them, find out where you can best go in your state online. There's all sorts of, facilitators of this, I should say, organizations. Yeah. The feds have left it to the state and various state charitable organizations and also cities and counties to implement this. So find out where to go, get the form, get it filled out, work with your tenant, and get the money. Now, you still may want to evict them, and you can. That's a key point here. You can get an eviction going for some other reason, maybe, if they haven't paid, or maybe they didn't qualify for the payments, or the payments didn't cover all the back rent, or whatever the case is. So if you get all your money, though, you can't evict them for not paying. They satisfied the payment. So you want to look at your lease, see if there's other reasons that you might need to consider to evict someone. But for payment purposes, if you get the money from the feds helping you with this situation, you cannot evict anymore. You can't get the best of both worlds. Oh,
yeah.
That doesn't sound good.
Which is, I think, again, the win-win is getting the rental assistance and getting that, getting paid, and the tenant getting their obligation taken care of so they don't have a judgment or bad credit chasing them down. And no landlord wants to go through an eviction process. Yeah. Just because you can evict doesn't mean you should. All right. The eviction process is a pain in the butt. You're going to pay lawyers. No one likes paying lawyers. Crap. The process is not immediate. It's going to take months. Anyone that's evicted a tenant, you guys know this. And so, and at the end of the day, you get a piece of paper that's a judgment that you can't collect on.
See, I was going to wait for this moment, because I thought I was going to impress my partner, Matt, and wait till the end of the show. But the window is now opened. Did you hear what Matt said? Just because you can evict them doesn't mean you should. Just because you can go down the single track trail doesn't mean you should. See where I was going? You see it? That was my point.
There.
Huh?
That was the payoff.
That was the payoff.
We had to sit through that mountain biking story of Mark Kohler for 10 minutes for that one point. But man,
I hope it was enjoyable anyway. But this was the Arrested Development when they found what's his name's hand in the dishwasher. That was like 4 episodes later. It paid off.
Buster.
Yeah, Buster's hand was in the dishwasher. You're like, oh my gosh, they brought that together. That was the payoff. So I just want to say, this is important because being a landlord, evicting someone is expensive. Usually the property is damaged upon their departure. They don't plan on paying you. They're 3 sheets to the wind. They're gone. And so you want to try to avoid evicting. Make sure you just because you can do it doesn't mean you should. Ooh.
Yeah. That's boy. Once you learn that in life, that's key.
Yeah.
All right, here's another point I think is important too. So with the eviction moratorium lifted and it's unconstitutional, now you do have a little leverage to try to work with your tenant. Before, I think a lot of tenants were like, can't touch me. Can't touch it. Little MC Hammer.
MC Hammer.
It's like, what are you going to do?
We went from Aerosmith to MC Hammer.
I'm not answering you.
Yeah.
I'm not answering your phone calls.
Yeah.
I'm not replying to your emails or your texts or letters or whatever you're sending me. So, but now, oh man, I gotta deal with this now. Now, we got to deal with it. I was going to try and use a mountain bike analogy there, mark on the single track, but, and so I think you, as landlords, you should be using that. Say, I don't want to evict you. I want to try to work with you. Let's try to work this out. There's the emergency rental assistance. Let's work together, get it paid. I guarantee you the process and likelihood of you getting paid is way higher doing emergency rental assistance and cooperating with your tenant than it is the eviction process.
Okay. All right. Now, next point. These are questions we've had on our open forum, which will be next week. Any of you that want to leave a question at mainstreet.com, mainstreetbusiness.com, get over there. Click on I have a question, and you can type in any question. You'll be surprised how many people around the country are sharing similar questions. The question is, in an eviction, can I go after the difference of what they still owe me plus any damages to the property? Yes. Now, what you would do is you're going to do some math. You're going to say, here's the back rent they didn't pay me. You're going to go to your lease agreement for any of the interest fees, late payment fees, and you're going to add all that up. You're going to look possibly to see if it includes attorney's fees and collection fees. Some of your leases are going to be an eye-awakening experience going, oh my gosh, my lease sucks. But you want to see what money can I get. Then when you get around to evicting them and getting them out, that's going to include any damages to the property after they leave. Make sure you're taking as many pictures as you can. Now, what are you going to subtract from that number? Any money you got from the federal assistance. So it's a combination. You can still get some money from the feds, but if they owe you for damages or any other back rent that didn't get covered through the federal assistance, then that's what you can get a judgment for in the eviction. See, the eviction is about getting them out and getting a judgment for what they owe you.
Yeah, and keep in mind, you may have a security deposit that you took. Every good landlord's going to take a security deposit of at least 1 month, maybe two. Yeah. I started doing two on another rental of mine. So at least 1 month's rent, and you would use that to offset the damages to the property. So, but also keep in mind, and I don't want to sound like a broken record on this, but you may do some negotiation here too. Because you may add this up and be like, hey, tenant, here's what, I can go after you for. Like, this is, if I add up 6 months of rent and the damage to the property and late payment fees and everything, it's $10,000. Cooperate with me on rental assistance. I'm gonna let you out of some of this stuff. Let's negotiate and try and get a positive outcome for both of us. Because again, I've just had to do it only once, luckily, on my residential rentals. It's the worst. Doing an eviction is the worst. It takes months. That property is going to be totally toast when they leave. You're not going to get your money paid back. Yeah. You have to get the sheriff over there. I had to get them out. It's just not a pleasant experience for anyone. You kind of feel like a jerk sometimes at the end. But because of this emergency rental assistance, this other pot of money out there.
Yeah.
I think that it could get some outcomes that can be favorable for both. But now with the eviction moratorium lifted, I think it's time for landlords to start engaging. They can start making moves. And if the tenant doesn't want to play ball and you just got to get them out so you can move on and get the next tenant in there, then do what you got to do. Go through the eviction process.
Now, this is also, I like what Matt brought up, negotiation time, because I've seen other landlords do this. They go into the tenant and go, all right, gloves are off. We got to talk. This is not good. You owe me some money. I don't want to evict you. I want you to stay here. Let's meet in the middle. If you are willing, one option is, please just leave. Please just leave. Yeah. I won't go after you for the back rent. I won't go after you for the deposit. Just go. And you can sign a settlement. And that might be a little settlement agreement that your attorney prepares. And you go to him and say, if you'll sign this, I waive any claim to come after you for any of these back rents. Now, I do want to do an inspection, and we will sign this document the day you give me the keys and walk out. Do not sign that document before you get a chance to inspect the property, because then they leave and take.
And they're out.
They're out.
Yeah, and their stuff's out. Yeah, you sign that, and their stuff's still in there. You need to evict them.
Yeah.
Can I kick them out, Matt? They signed a settlement agreement that said they leave. Nope. Like, you're still going to need to go get an eviction, get an order. You're talking 3 months, and then the sheriff can come by and really kick them out.
Yeah. So great comments. And so keeping a dialogue open and saying, I'm willing to meet you in the middle, just please leave, can save a lot of heartache. Now, the professional squatter, they're not going to sign that. And regrettably, there are tenants out there that they're going to wait till the sheriff literally picks them up by their ear and plops them out in the hallway. And it's too bad that people will live that way and take advantage of others. But if you can have a reasonable conversation, cut a deal. Try to get them out of there. And you can settle anywhere in between. So get out there.
Yep. I love it. Well, the rental assistance too, just so everybody knows, and just like Arizona is an example right now, I can give you numbers. It's a little different state to state on amount, but it's a maximum of 18 months of rental assistance that can include utility assistance for them. And in Arizona, it's $3,500 per month.
Yeah.
So I have a rental that's 2,300 a month that I had a tenant in there that was very good. They kept engaged with me. They were behind on rent, but they got the rental assistance. And I got 3 months of rent paid in advance through the end of their lease, actually. And they've since moved out, but, and it was good. They were great tenants, actually, you know.
Yeah.
But just know that's there, and you can go back too. It's not like you're like, oh, we missed it. They haven't paid me, and we haven't been able to communicate. Failure on my end or theirs, whatever it is. No, go communicate. You can go back too.
Yeah, I love it. Now, on the topic of eviction, this is not a show on how to evict people. It's very state, city, sometimes county specific, because eviction is a very localized issue. And so if you're going to go down the path of eviction, whether or not you get any money in rental assistance or not, whether you cut a deal with a tenant or not, I think it's very important you immediately dive into Google and start looking at state websites on the landlord laws for your state. Pull out a pad of paper, get a big Diet Coke, a bowl of popcorn, and sit down and go, okay, what should I be aware of here? What are the rights of tenants in my state? Some states are very landlord friendly. Some states are very tenant friendly. And we've all kind of put on our blinders maybe during this pandemic. Now it's time to reopen that can of worms. And so really make a list of what you need to be aware of. A lot of times on these websites, they're going to give you the steps to proceed. You might find a local attorney that's really good at this, where they just specialize in evictions. I think the sooner, if you're going to evict, the sooner you can give notice of that, the better. Because there's a waiting period. You got to give people, I mean, the theory is give them time to pack their crap up. But it's way too long in most instances. So get it filed right away. Don't delay. Any advice on evicting, Matt? Because you've done this because you're a jerk. But in your situation, I mean, I've never done this.
I had a property manager handle it, but that's what I just say is like you avoid. This is the last card you play, and that's why with the emergency rental assistance, you've been given some freaking wild cards. All right, you've been given like, hey, if I can play this with you, tenant, I get paid, you get relieved of your obligation to pay me. Again, it's the win-win. And so, but if for whatever reason, if they don't qualify because they didn't lose their job, they make over $100,000 a year, whatever these things are, that's like they just don't qualify. They freaking should have been paying the rent in my mind. I just don't know, like, if you don't qualify, like, who's the tenant we should feel bad for? I'm sure there's some that fall through the cracks, but in general, it's the way that they designed the emergency rental assistance was to pick up anybody who was affected or that had less than a six-figure income that couldn't pay.
Yeah. And
so those are the ones that need help. Those are the ones you feel bad evicting. Those are the ones we can get emergency rental assistance for. And again, you can have the win-win, so you don't have to do the eviction. But I've had tenants not pay. I've had tenants that have left properties trash that the security deposit didn't cover. And I just go out of pocket. It's not worth chasing them down and going to court and throwing good money at bad. Yeah. It's very hard to collect on an eviction judgment. I bet 9 out of 10 judgments from an eviction are never collected.
Yeah. Okay, now let's talk taxes for a minute. A lot of people have been asking me about what is a deductible. If you've got to repair the property after the tenant's gone, that's a deduction. Unless it's substantively, sorry, tongue twister, improving the property and doing substantial reconstruction or something that is attached to the premises, then those might have to be depreciated. But for the most part, any repairs, maintenance, cleanup, all that is going to be immediately deductible. Can you deduct your time? No, it's only out-of-pocket costs. I'm sorry. So if you pay someone to go do that cleanup, subcontractor, employee, whatever it is, great. You may be paying your kids. You may be paying a family member. Whole other topic we love to talk about on our show. But the expenses to repair the place are a write-off. If you paid for utility bills on behalf of your tenant because they didn't pay them, then you get to write that off. But if you got rental assistance, then that's going to be considered income because it's taking the place of rent that was supposed to be paid to you. So the rental assistance is income. All the expenses you incurred are going to be a write-off. And as many of you know, we want to be really aggressive there, thinking of any out-of-pocket costs during this nightmare. Tools, supplies, equipment, utilities. But
legal fees if you have to do the
yeah,
eviction, the filing fees to the court, the fees you pay your lawyer. Maybe you have a collection company or property manager that charges you fees in the process. Those are all going to be expenses too.
yeah. Now you cannot write off them not paying rent. So you'll say, well, I want to write off because they didn't pay me rent. So I'm going to write off the rent I didn't receive. Well, 99.9% of us are all cash basis taxpayers as landlords, meaning you get rent, you have income. You have an expense, you get a write-off. If they don't pay the rent, you don't have income. So, so you don't get a write-off because they didn't pay rent. You just don't have to claim it as income. So I hate to break that news to you, but lots of great write-offs in this. Not that, I mean, and that may be a little bit of, what do they call it? Not salt, the opposite of salt in the wound. It's a little bit of, just a little bit of, you know, it's a little
kind of like a
consolation prize.
consolation prize. There you go. Yeah.
So keep track of all those expenses, whether you paid for them with your personal card, business card. I've got another thought, Matt. Anything else on expenses? I got a thought on privacy. Can I go there?
Oh, yeah, sure.
I think this has been a wake-up call for a lot of people that you may have your own name on that rental property. That's terrible asset protection. You may have an LLC, but the LLC has your name all over it and your home address. And in this very volatile situation, the last thing you may want is your tenant knowing where you live. So this is a good opportunity to go, you know what? I'm not going to let that happen again. So as you're hitting reset, you're getting rid of the tenant, you're fixing up the property. Maybe you are going to sell, maybe you're not. But if you're going to keep this thing, let's reevaluate your lease agreement. Let's really get into it. A lot of people have never looked at their lease agreement until this pandemic. This is a chance to get your LLC in good order, make sure that your home address is not on there, really reevaluate your asset protection plan too. Because now moving forward, you're going to learn from this. You're going to be better. You're going to be smarter.
Yeah, great point. Yeah, I think as a general rule of thumb, we always want our clients to be using an LLC for their rentals for asset protection. So you're not renting the property. You don't own the property. Your LLC does. Your LLC's on title. Your LLC rents the property. Why do I want that? If the tenant slips and falls, or I have some snafu in the eviction and they want to sue me, they can't sue me. They have to sue the LLC. Okay, it keeps all your personal assets separate from the liabilities of the property. The other thing that's important with the LLC, as Mark said, is can give you some privacy. Yeah. Now, some of you self-manage your rentals. You lease it yourself. They know you own the property. It's not like you're like hiding there. Now, some of you have property managers and you're very behind the scenes, you know, the Wizard of Oz, whatever, behind the curtain. Yeah. And so your name, you might want to try find ways to keep your name off. But your address, I think, is one that's pretty easy to get off. Your name's a little more tricky depending on how involved you want to be. Yeah. But the address is easier. And we have services, a mail forwarding service where you can use our address, registered agent service where our office or our registered agent company we have in all 50 states is listed. And so that's a way that it at least keeps your address off of there. Cause that's what I like is having a separate address. I don't want they may know me. I'm just gonna say that for like my tenants, you know, they do know that I own the property and I am a little bit engaged, at least in the ones here, but they definitely don't know where I live. Yeah. That ain't on there. Yeah. I don't want them showing up at my house, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Now, another point I want to make, if I may, a lot of people in the 2018, 2017, 2019, whenever the crash really hit you, back when the Big Short occurred, a lot of people said, I'm never going to be a landlord again. Real estate sucks. The real estate market crashed. I'm licking my wounds. I'm going to never do real estate again. There's a couple of companies that I've come to know over the last 10 years that went all in on life insurance. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a lender and do life insurance. Never going to own real estate again. Well, that's kind of like saying, man, I had a bad dating experience. I'm never going to date again. I'm going to die single. Well, okay, you had a bad date, or maybe you had a bad marriage. Does that mean you're going to bury yourself in a bunker or put your head in the sand the rest of your life? No. Try to realize that a lot of people were affected by this, both tenants and landlords. And it's the up and down of real estate that we all knew we were getting into. But what's going on right now? See, when people call me up and go, real estate sucks, I got this tenant. I'll go, how much is your property worth right now? Well, yeah.
Right.
It's really good right now. Then chill out,
Yeah, that was a client I talked to, actually, that was I mentioned earlier, was wanting to sell their property because it appreciated so much. Arizona's had huge price appreciation. In fact, I sold the rental last week even. So myself, it was pretty great. But we've seen that on the plus side, the rental prices have increased. And I think while there has been some headaches for a lot of smaller landlords and we know, you've had to pay the mortgage, you haven't collected on rent, you've struggled with the emergency rental assistance because you've lacked tenant cooperation. We've heard that, that happening. Mark Kohler will always be the glass is half full. Your property's appreciated. I guarantee you it's appreciated more than the rent you've lost. At least if you're in places where I am and I've been following the market. So there's a plus side to it. And I think we always like to, what can we learn from this, process? And what I've really learned, and this is what I mentioned this earlier, is I've had to learn a lot in my own rentals. And that I have a property manager manage, I told them I'm not doing 1 month's security deposit anymore. We had 80 applications like within 2 days for when I listed it for rent. There's tons of people. I'm like, I want 2 months of a security deposit because the last tenant moved out and I had like $5,000 in repairs and a $1,500 security deposit. I didn't go very far. Yeah. Like I want 2 months security deposit on here to cover any repairs that we have to make. And so figure out the lessons you've learned, know the market you're in. And if you're going to keep it as a rental, guarantee you your rent is going to go way higher than what your lease was last year.
You can't just have all the good comments. Jeez. I was just going to say,
you got to be fast. You got to be fast.
Yeah. Matt, right before he started his wonderful statement that, took all the goodies off the table for me, left me crumbs. He said in that statement, some might call it diarrhea of the mouth, but I wouldn't say that. That would not be me. Yeah. I'm just saying some may, but not me. You're host. I respect your comments.
There's no explanation of what is a single track trail.
Touche. Hey, mine had a point. Just because you can go down the mountain doesn't mean you should. That okay. Now,
it took you 15 minutes to think of that one and bring it back.
I had it in the back pocket the whole time.
You knew where you were going? I
knew where I was going. I think through this. Okay. I mean, I even when I got off the mountain, I called a friend and I said, you know what? That was death defying, but I got some good podcast material. That was well worth it.
And that was worth it. I appreciate that.
By the way, I got off the mountain, called this friend, and I was like, they're like, well, I thought you died. Where was your phone? Just to add to my stupidity, I went down the mountain by myself, and my cell phone died before I went.
Yeah.
I didn't tell you. My podcast partner here, my law partner, is like, dude, never do that again. I could have been at the bottom of the mountain. Not good. Okay, here's what Matt said that was helpful. He said rents went up. But not only did rental properties values go up, rents are on the increase. So even though you're licking your wounds, maybe you're feeling a little dismayed with rental property, own it. Chill out. I'm not going to let you cry on my shoulder too long because you've got a great opportunity to turn around, really reevaluate your lease, reevaluate the type of tenant you want. This has been a reality check. We had a show with Rent Prep here on the show about a year ago, And there's websites like them everywhere. We really like Rent Prep. It's an affordable
Yeah.
website. For $20, you can do a background check. So when Matt's out there doing applications wanting 2 months deposit, you know what he's doing now? I bet you he's asking for a credit check. He's wanting to look at those applications because he's going to choose a lot better tenant this time around. It was hard. My kids, when Matt kicked him out last week and evicted him, it hurt. But I knew he had to do it. My kids weren't paying the rent, and it was a hard life lesson. Won't let Uncle Matt let me stay here any longer. No, I'm sorry.
I just have that personal guarantee from Mark Kohler there, so I know I'm getting paid.
No, he didn't kick out my
another
kids.
story for another day. We got to talk about that, but okay. So let me kind of summarize a couple of key things. Federal eviction moratorium gone. Supreme Court ruled it unconstitutional. Yeah. You may be in a state that has a state eviction moratorium, so just check that in your specific state. Landlords realize the best ability for you to get paid is the emergency rental assistance. It's a win-win for your tenant. It's a win-win for you. That check will not bounce. It comes from the government. Okay. It's good. All right. And the eviction process will take you months if you have to do it. You'll cost you thousands in legal fees. And at the end of the day, you're going to get a trashed property because your tenant's not going to love you because you're evicting them. You didn't work with them. And you're going to get a piece of paper that says they owe you something that's not worth the piece of paper it's written on. Yeah. So I want to encourage people to reach out to these resources that are there. Again, it's 18 months of federal emergency assistance that can be used for rent. Arizona's up to $3,500 a month. Every state's a little different. That's just an example there.
Okay. Well, I think those are reasonable summary points. I think the best one is just because you can evict someone doesn't mean you do.
Yeah. And that was mine. I did say that. That was mine.
Oh my gosh. Now I go through that whole story and you steal the punchline. Okay.
That was mine. No, I said it. Just because you can evict someone doesn't mean you should.
Well, that was going to be the summary to my story. Unbelievable. This hurts. This hurts people. This is what.
Well, I mean, you brought it back to mountain biking, but yeah.
Oh no, but people, real estate is still good. Real estate's still good. Dating is still good. Marriage is still good. Life is still good. Just because you got the crap kicked out of you with the tenant, don't think the sky is falling. Look for the glass half full. Learn from this experience. Get a better lease. Get a better tenant. Get a better LLC. Think about your privacy. Increase your rents. Maybe refi. Interest rates are down now. People,
yeah, that's another big one.
Yeah, lots of opportunities here. So you're not going to get a shoulder to cry on here because we're going to tell you all the good things that you can do now and learn from this. And there's rental assistance out there to probably get. So a little bit of tough love there. Is that okay? A little tough love? Well,
it's necessary.
Sometimes
it's necessary.
That's what Matt said to his tenant. This hurt. Did you say this hurts me more than it hurts you? Did you?
Yeah, you don't even know. That's
yeah. Or did you say it's not about you, it's about me? Did you use that one?
Yeah. Can't believe you're trying to use the "it's not you, it's not me." I invented that. Okay, you're right. It's you. Jeez, you're damn right. It's me. George Costanza. That's a good sign.
That was awesome. That was good. Well, everybody, please continue to make this podcast a part of your regular listen every week. We want to save you money, make you money, help you hide it, help you launder it, help you. No, we don't want to do that. We want to. What do we want to do?
Just help you protect it.
Yes.
And help you strategically pay only as much tax as you need to.
There you go. So those are all good things. We're not dirty, rotten scoundrels.
Sounds way better.
Yeah, I was looking at my hate mail all of a sudden and just realized.
What kind of an operation do you think we're running over here?
Well, I was just looking at the hate mail and I was like, someone said the other day, you should read your comments. You have a lot of good comments. People really appreciate what you do. And I go, yeah, but the problem is I kind of focus in on those nasty comments. And then, then I end up, with a bottle in the basement, huddled up in a corner for a weekend. That's not healthy. Some may say it's healthy. It's not,
Yeah.
But
yeah.
So.
All right, everyone.
All right.
Well, thanks for hanging in there on it. We appreciate you will be having more episodes, of course, coming up. Make sure you're following the newsletter. You'll get notifications of shows you may have missed, see what the upcoming shows are. You'll get our workshop updates, our summit, all the educational stuff we're doing throughout the fall, which is a lot. We'd love to see you there at any of those events. Get over to mainstreetbusiness.com where you can sign up for that. We'll be back next week with another amazing episode of Main Street Business.
See you there.